Hey, what's up guys? This is my second part for section 6.2 solving system using substitution. Just a quick review of the steps how to solve by substitution. So you guys can read them on the screen. Number one, you isolate the variable with the coefficient 1 or -1. Number two, you want to substitute the expression you got from step number 1 into the other equation and solve for the common variable. In step number 3, you substitute the value you found in step number 2 into one equation. Doesn't matter which one you use in step 3, and you solve for the next common variable. Step number 4, check your solution. That's optional. You guys can use decimals or you can substitute the numbers to check. But let's go ahead and talk about those special cases today. What happens when your answer is no solution or many solutions. So let's go ahead and look at one example. So this example here, we have a system x plus 3y equals 4, and we have 2x plus 6y equals 5. Just by looking at it, you don't really know if it's no solution or many solution. You just have to do the work, and I'll let you guys know what you need to look for in order to say one of the answers. So you start just like the basic steps that I show you guys, and I also show you on the previous video. Step number 1, you guys will have to get one of the variables by itself. So it's a lot easier if you always look for the variable that has a coefficient of 1. I notice this one here, x, has a coefficient of 1. It has an invisible 1. So I'm going to try and solve for that variable. I'm going to copy the equation here, x plus 3y equals -4. And I'm going to solve for x. So I'm going to subtract 3y from both sides. And I'm going to have x, this cancels, equals -3y minus 4. Okay, so I do have that answer or that variable. So now, in step number 2, you guys are going to use the other equation. So we have 2x plus the 6y equals 5. And I'm going to substitute my expression I found in step number 1. So this expression. Now you also have to be careful what that equals. -3y minus 4 is x, because we have x equals this expression. So I'm going to substitute all of this into the x. So I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to use parentheses here, plus the 6y here equals 5. And I substitute -3y minus 4. All right, now you guys solve for the specific variable. Notice we have a y, so we are solving for y. I'm going to distribute, I'm going to multiply. So I have -6y minus 8 plus 6y equals 5. And you probably already noticed, look at the y's. -6y plus 6y cancels. So all we have left is the -8 on the left side and the 5 on the right side. Now this is what you have to look for. Notice we don't have a variable anymore. There's no x, there's no y. So now you have to ask yourself, is that statement true or false? False. So this right here, -8 equals 5, they're not the same number. So when this happens, when the variables cancel and you get a false statement, we say the answer is no solution, which means if you graph the actual lines, these two equations, they will be parallel. That's what it is. When you have parallel lines, there is no solution. We don't have an x and a y that actually works and gives you a true statement for both equations. So my answer, no solution, because the statement is false when the variables cancel. Now I do want to give you guys a little note on the side. So when you guys, I'm just going to put here, note, when you guys actually do the work, same thing we did step number 1, step number 2, but let's say that you guys get, let's just make up a number, -9 equals -9. Hey, that's true. A -9 equals a -9, they're the same number. So since this is a true statement, if that happens, the variables cancels and you get a true statement. Now you guys say that we have many solutions. So you have to be careful. Every time you guys solve and the variables cancel, you have to check if we have many solutions. Some people say infinitely many solutions. We have for the answer. So let me put a big box right here so you remember, if we have a true statement is many solutions, that is your actual answer, but you have a false statement like this one here, is no solution. And just to recap, just to review a little bit, when you graph, if you guys use Desmos or others graphing calculator and you graph the equations, many solutions means the two equations are the same line. So one line is on top of the other one. Now this example here is not one of the special cases, but it has decimals. So I want to show you guys how to solve a system when we have decimals. And I'm just going to show you how to get rid of those decimals without a calculator. So first, let's look at the first equation. 0.3x minus 0.2y equals 0.5. Well, you notice that there's only one number after the decimal, one number after the decimal, one number after the decimal. So to get rid of those decimals, you can multiply everything by 10. And I'm saying 10 because you notice the number 10 has 1 0. So when you multiply by 10, when you multiply a decimal by 10, that's going to make the decimal move to the right once. So when you move this decimal to the right, that's going to turn into a 3. This one is going to turn to a 2, and you move this one, and this is going to turn into a 5. So that's why you multiply by 10. If you have two numbers after the decimal, then you multiply by 100, because 100 has 2 zeros. So now, let me just put a little mark here, so you remember you move the decimal to the right, move the decimal to the right, and you move the decimal to the right. So I'm just going to do the work here on the right side. When I multiply by 10, I will get a 3x minus a 2y equals and the 5. Now the bottom equation stays the same. There's no decimals, so we have x minus 2y equals negative 5. Now we are ready to solve. So let's go ahead and do step number 1. You guys look for the variable that has a coefficient of 1. Hey, it's right here. So I'm going to solve for that variable. X minus 2y equals negative 5. I'm going to add 2y to both sides. So this is gone. X equals positive 2y minus the 5. Step number 2, you are using the other equation, the one we didn't use. So this one here on the top. And I'm going to substitute all of this expression into x. Once again, yx, because we have x equals all of that. So I'm going to take this into the x. So I bring down the 3. I'm going to use parentheses minus the 2y equals the 5. So I have a 2y minus 5 here. I'm going to multiply. I'm going to distribute. So I'm going to get 6y minus 15 and minus 2y equals 5. And you start solving. Combine like terms right here. Oops, that didn't come out right. Let's try again. There's the box. And combine terms over here. So we have 4y minus 15 equals 5. You guys add 15. The idea right now is to get the y by itself. So 4y equals 20. You guys divide by 4. Let me just move this up here. And the answer is 5. Y equals 5. All right. So now we go to step number 3. Now notice, we do have y. So we don't say no solution. We don't say many solutions because we have a number. Y equals 5. Step 3, you guys use one of the equations. And obviously don't use the one with decimals. That's going to be a lot harder. So I'm going to use the bottom. I have x minus 2y equals negative 5. And I'm going to substitute the y, the 5, into the y. So I have x minus 2 times the 5 equals negative 5. And solve. X minus 10 equals negative 5. You add 10 to both sides. So x equals positive 5. So we got the x and the y. So my answer in an order pair 5, 5. So x is always first, and then we have the y. All right, guys, I have one more example, and that's going to be for this video. That's going to conclude this video. So let's go ahead and look at the next one. And we have fractions. I know sometimes people don't like fractions, but I show you guys that if you have a fraction, just get rid of it. And that's going to make your life a lot easier. So that fraction, 1/3, and we have an x minus y equals 3. Well, to get rid of the fraction, you just multiply by the denominator. This one doesn't have a fraction, so we don't have to worry about the bottom. But I will multiply the top equation by 3. So I will distribute. I'm going to multiply, distribute, and you distribute. So I'm just going to put here, I'm going to go to the right side. That's going to be 3x over 3. Now just to refresh your memory. 3, you multiply the top, 3 times 1 is 3, and you keep the denominator. So there's a 3. Do not multiply 3 times 3. You don't multiply the denominator. And then you multiply by y, so minus 3y, and then you multiply the 3 on the other side, which is 9. Now you can simplify 3 divided by 3. That's going to be 1. So let me put another arrow here. So I'm going right over here, guys. So we have 1x minus 3y equals 9. All right. So now let me just take the bottom equation all the way over here. So the bottom, just move it. And we have 2x plus y equals 25. So we have a system with no fractions right here. So that's a lot easier. You are going to solve, but don't use the fraction. So let's go ahead and solve. Step number 1. You guys use the variable that has a coefficient of 1. I see this x right here. So I'm going to solve for that x. X minus 3y equals 9. You guys add 3y to both sides. So we get x equals 3y plus the 9. And this is a y right here. Step number 2, you are going to use the other equation. So 2x plus y equals 25. Where am I going to substitute all of this right here? Into the x, because that's what it is. X equals. Always be careful what expression you have, what it equals to. If this is a y, you substitute into the y. But right now it's an x, so you substitute into the x. So we have 2 parentheses, 3y plus 9. You bring down the y and the 25. So now you guys distribute, multiply, and multiply. So we have 6y plus 18 plus the y equals 25, and solve. And just to make this video a little bit shorter, I didn't explain the steps, but here is when you solve. I'm just going to put this a little bit up so you can see. We have y equals 1 right there. You can pause the video, you can check the steps, and you can check your work. But y equals 1. So step number 3, I'm going to choose one of the equations. And I'm just going to zoom out so you can see the equations. Let's go back over here, the ones with no fractions. I like the top. I like this one. So I'm going to use the top equation. X minus 3y equals 9. I do have the y value, so I substitute into the y. So x minus 3 times 1, there's the y, equals 9. And you guys solve. So the answer, I'm just going to do this a little bit fast. That's gone. X equals 12. So we got the x value. So my answer here, remember x is always first. There's the 12, comma, and the 1. X first, and then the y. So remember, alphabetical order. You always want your answer in order paired, in parentheses, with the x first and the y. All right, guys, so this concludes my second part of the video for section 6.2. Make sure you guys practice your math, and I'll see you guys later.